Hey, good afternoon.
Testing one, two, three.
Good afternoon. Hi, guys. Ryan, thank you. Kate, thank you for doing this today. So appreciate it.
Of course.
Can y'all
Absolutely.
see
Happy
who else is
Friday.
on? Can you see it? Can y'all see the other people that are on?
Yeah,
Uh,
thank you.
I can see Deb, Sharon, Anna. Yep.
Okay. It's not for, we got another minute to go. I just want to make sure everybody's. The only council person we can't get in touch with is Steve Friedman, but he knows about it. So we have four of the five council people on the call. We have
Got it.
we opened it up to members of the public, but I'm not sure we can see them. So I don't.
Well, yeah, they would be here attendees.
Okay, so they may or may not be on. And then again, is that Lee? Is Lee on? It says Legislative Aid District 120. Lee, are you there?
She won't be able to talk being an attendee unless she raises her hand.
Go ahead. You can allow her to talk. Yeah. Yeah, in case she has something to say.
So that's unmute.
Lee,
Good
can you hear us?
afternoon. I can. Good afternoon.
Okay, so-
I am on. I'm just observing. I am not going to be speaking today. I'm just observing.
I just want to make sure if you wanted to speak, you could, because that was your big deal. So, all right.
I appreciate it, but I'm here if you have any questions. But I'm just an observer.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. I think we have pretty much, other than Steve Friedman, I think everybody that we thought was emails on. We also have a couple staff. Since this is our first one, I wasn't really sure how to do it, but we do have three of our lobbyists on, four of our council people, some staff here. We did notice it to the public, and so they were going to be allowed to watch but not speak. We didn't want it to get off track. We put in there to send me emails if you had any questions about yesterday. I didn't get any emails. So just make sure people know that if they had access, the public had access to this meeting. If they chose not to participate, that's on them. So, have you all talked internally how you want to do this, Ryan? You and Angela and Kate. So why don't you go ahead and kick it off? Let us know.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. We do want to be efficient, obviously. A lot is going on in Tallahassee. So I'm going to start with just sort of a 50,000-foot view of where we are as we end the first week. Talk a little bit about property taxes, which is, an 800-pound gorilla. Talk a little bit about some of the other themes that we've seen sort of develop this legislative session. And then I do want you to know we'll be sending out here in a couple of hours our newsletter that is really going to hit on some of the individual bills that we'd love for you all to pay attention to and give some feedback on, particularly in the growth management and land use space, right? Because the keys are impacted uniquely when it comes to statewide growth management and land use changes, just because of the very nature of being an area of critical state concern. So we started on Tuesday as the first official day of session. We gavelled in. The House and Senate went into a joint session and heard the governor's final State of the State address. It's very well publicized. There are icy, I guess, how you could describe them, relationships between the governor and the speaker. And I think everyone in Tallahassee is kind of watching to see how the House and Senate are going to get along as well. As we start this legislative session. You'll recall last year, what was a 60-day legislative session lasted 105 days because we couldn't land a budget on time. So I think largely most folks in Tallahassee would tell you they're not super optimistic that this is going to be a smooth sailing legislative session. So we're all sort of prepared for bumps in the road. One of the things that happened prior to the start of session is obviously the conversation centered around property tax reform. So governor has been pushing for significant reform and or elimination, but there is no formal plan out there coming from the governor's office. The House is the only chamber that has put anything out there formally, and they've put 7 proposals into the ether. Speaker originally said that he wanted all 7 to be voted off the House floor the first week of session. Well, here we are at the end of the first week, and none of them have been voted off the House floor. the governor, for the first time last week, said it may be a good idea to have property taxes dealt with in a special session, which quickly the Senate president agreed in a memo to senators saying this is a pretty heady topic. It may be best that we deal with property taxes in a standalone special session sometime in April or May. So we're really kind of focused on the question of when is property tax reform going to occur. I'm pretty confident in the next 6 months there will be something on the November ballot as it relates to property tax reform. The question is just what. So let's go quickly through the proposals just so you're aware of the universe of where we are, all of which would have a pretty significant impact, obviously, on local governments. The first is to eliminate all non-school homestead property taxes. And keep in mind that every proposal the House has put forward, local governments have to hold harmless law enforcement, fire, and EMS. So you still have to provide those services, even though your property tax revenues would be impacted. So that first proposal was eliminate all non-school homestead property taxes. The second is a phase out of non-school property homestead taxes, $100,000 per year, going to 2037 with complete elimination. The third is an exemption for just those Florida residents 65 and plus of non-school homestead property taxes. The fourth is a new exemption for 25% of a home's assessed value. The fifth is a $200,000 exemption if you carry multi-peril property insurance. This is the proposal that's gotten the most play so far, quite frankly. It's passed all three of its committees of reference and is ready for a vote on the House floor. Hasn't been voted on yet. The final two, the first would remove the $500,000 cap on our Save Our Homes portability. That has passed two of its three House committee references. And then the final proposal that the House has put forward would limit local government's property assessments, which now occurs every year, to once every 3 years. So those are the proposals. They have not yet, again, there's nothing coming out of the Senate. And just procedurally, so you're aware, these proposals need to pass each chamber by a 3/5 vote. They do not go to the governor. He does not have a chance to veto them. They go straight to judicial review in the Supreme Court and then would be placed on a ballot and need 60% overall, obviously, to pass. So again, question really around property taxes, is the legislature going to deal with it in the regular session? Are they going to punt and deal with it in a special session sometime in April or May? Let's talk about other themes quickly before Kate talks a little bit about property insurance and Keys Day. So the first theme, and Angela can answer specific questions because she's very plugged in the budget world, is we've got the governor, the Senate president, and the speaker have all been aligned on they would like the budget to be less than last fiscal year. Last fiscal year overall, the budget was about $117 billion. The question becomes how much less is this year's budget? Most appropriators right now are telling people it's probably in that $1 to $3 billion less amount. So we're thinking $115, $116 billion before governor vetoes. So the question becomes, where does that come from? Is it healthcare? Is it education? Is it the environment, transportation, et cetera? I mean, healthcare and education are sort of our two biggest budget spenders. So it is likely to assume that significant cuts would come from there. What we're also nervous about, quite frankly, is member appropriations projects. And we filed a number of those on behalf of Islamorada. But sometimes that can be, easy places to cut, although it impacts certainly legislators in an election year. So that's the budget. Growth management, I talked about it earlier. There's probably half a dozen to 10 bills that are out there that are harmful in their current form to local governments, particularly so for areas of critical state concern and those who, have caps on the number of permits that can be issued from a development standpoint. You all are entirely unique from the rest of the state. And so we try to do our best to let folks know of that in Tallahassee. Education has been a continuing topic of policy debate, education freedom in particular, healthcare workforce, redistricting, which is going to be a special session, affordable housing, sovereign immunity. We really are kind of bumping up against, a dozen or so main themes of session. And we've had about 1,800 bills filed to date. So obviously a lot to digest. And we're going to take questions from the electeds and Ron, but I do want to kick it to Kate because she was going to talk a little bit about property insurance and Keys Day.
Sure. Thank you, Ryan. So just wanted to mention this separately because I know it's obviously a big issue of concern for most of us that have properties in the Florida Keys is property insurance. This year, again, Rep. Mooney and Senator Rodriguez have put forward a bill in collaboration with FIRM that would do sort of three things. It would increase the coverage cap for the Florida Keys. It would institute a rate cap, which was in place previously, and it would create exemptions for, elevated properties or properties that are out of flood zones from the flood requirement. That's very similar to what they put forward last year, except that this year's version, the bill is limited to, would only apply in areas where there's no private market competition. But this year we did see this week, we did see an announcement from the governor that's very, very relevant to these interests. He had a press conference this week, sort of talking about the improvements in the market, highlighting that there have been about 17 new insurers coming into the state. Citizens is now at the lowest its population count it's been at since I think in 14 years. It was at its height a little over, I think it was 1.3 million. And now they're just under 400,000. So it's definitely in a different place than it was just a few years ago. And the governor was announcing that this spring, Citizens put forward, I believe it was in December, their recommended rate filing for next year. And it was recommending, I want to say, an average decrease of about 2% and change. And the governor announced that OIR has actually directed them to reduce those rates significantly. So statewide, I believe the average for Citizens policyholders will be a reduction of about 8.7%. Normally, I would, assume that doesn't apply to us, but this week there were at least 3 different times in the press conference that Monroe County was mentioned specifically. He mentioned that all 67 counties would see reductions and that about 1,000 policyholders in Monroe County should see a reduction of about 11.3%. For those of us that have wind only, which is a lot of us, the expectation is that those rates will either reduce slightly or will at the least stay the same. So I know FIRM is working with OIR to get some Monroe County specific breakdowns based on that announcement, but definitely a step in the right direction and good to see Monroe County listed specifically in some rate relief discussions when it comes to property insurance. I think Rep. Mooney and Senator Rodriguez bills are very important still because they do include that coverage cap increase that is extremely important, especially when there aren't other private market options, and the flood carve out, which, as we know, can be pretty problematic and expensive. So stay tuned for movement on that. It is the first week, so those bills haven't started moving yet, but we'll continue to monitor those. And we are also continuing to work with Rep. Mooney's office on Florida Keys Day. We are going to get with Ron. Hopefully next week we can get with you and kind of discuss our meeting schedules, who we want to meet with, make sure we're meeting with the right people for the right issues, and build out a really good schedule for Florida Keys Day. But I think it's going to be a great event this year. And we're looking forward to having everyone in Tallahassee.
So Ron, that's our high level recap about what's going on. We have President's Day on Monday, so the legislature will not be here. As you're well aware, those first 2 to 3, maybe 4 legislative committee or legislative session weeks. Sometimes the legislature works on Friday, sometimes they don't. I think the schedule is already pretty light next Thursday and Friday as well. So it's a pretty short week next week. Let's talk a little bit just briefly, and then I'll open it up. The budget, generally the nature of the budget timing is the individual chambers will draft their budgets, usually around week 4, week 5. They'll come into budget conference in other words, they will negotiate a final product, usually latter parts of week 6, week 7, sometimes week 8, really kind of depends. And then finalize a budget normally within that, last couple days of session to send to the governor. I would clarify, or I would classify this year as a hopeful one in that we can get the budget on time. I know the Senate is moving pretty quickly in terms of developing their budget. And so we are working on your behalf to make sure that our projects are included and kept alive throughout. But we really don't have finality on individual projects within the budget until much later during the legislative session.
Anything you need that you think we need to be doing for our end at this early stage?
Not at the moment. Angela, I'll let you.
No, I would just say I think we're in a good place for right now. We've laid the initial groundwork, have had initial meetings with both the sponsors and subcommittee chairs. So I think at the moment we're in a good spot with our projects.
Any council people want to chime in?
Okay, I'll just say thank you to both Ryan and Kate. Kate and I were obviously on the firm board meeting yesterday, so appreciate all that hard work, and you guys are doing great.
Deb, do you have anything? You're unmuted.
You're unmuted, Deb.
You can talk, Deb. You're unmuted.
That's not working.
Okay. I guess that's an okay signal. And then Sharon is muted, and if Sharon can hear us, Sharon.
I'm unmuted and I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, Sharon, nothing for you?
Nope.
Okay. Deb's figuring out how to unmute. I think she is unmuted. Deb, can you hear us?
She's unmuted.
She's probably having audio issues on her end.
Okay. All right. And Steve Freeman, I haven't heard back from Steve, but he was invited to this too. So we've had all 5 council people alerted to it. As far as I can tell, there's no members of the public, although it was published on the call. So if so, we'll get with you on that.
Ryan, Kate, I want to thank you again for holding this first session meeting with us, and look forward to every Friday us being able to have these and an update on what's going on. I would like to make sure that during Florida Keys Day, if we can, make sure that we schedule to have a pretty decent lengthy meeting with Commerce if we can, and we've got some pretty important things that we need to talk to them about. So I think, of course, Ron's already kind of told you we want to talk to, several other folks there, but I think a meeting with Commerce is of the ultimate importance right now, for sure.
Okay, yeah, and we'll get with Ron, Councilman, next week and kind of finalize all that, and then we'll come up with something that is a benefit to everybody.
Ron and I are getting up there a day early than Florida Keys Day. I think Ron's 2 days, I'm 1 day early, so we'll certainly be available that day before the 2 Florida Keys days, and look forward to meeting up with you guys. So thank y'all very much.
That's good to know. Thank you.
That'll be helpful from a scheduling perspective to have more than 1 day. So fantastic.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say, and I know, we've talked about this before, sometimes because it is Keys Day and we have so many attendees, it's difficult because, folks are getting pulled into 15 different directions. So that early arrival is certainly helpful.
Yeah. Very good. Thanks again.
Anybody else have anything? See, no, there's an 18-minute call. I think we can handle that going forward. So we appreciate all y'all's input, and we look forward to talking to you again on Friday.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great weekend.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much, everyone. Bye.